Hi, this is Clare Thanhauser, jewelry designer and owner of the Moontree Boutique. I'm also a GIA gemologist, and I wanted to do a little video today about what a gemologist actually is, what that means, what a gemologist does, and why I became a gemologist. So I wrote a little scripty here so that I don't forget anything and leave anything out. So here we go. What is a gemologist and what do they do? So a gemologist is a person who's academically trained and accredited in the science of gemstones, primarily dealing with the classification of natural versus artificial or enhanced gemstone materials. This evaluation bears a huge impact on the value of the gemstones because gems have different grades based on things like color, size, quality, like characteristics such as translucence and lack of inclusions, which is like little specks inside the stone or other minerals growing inside the primary mineral. So how do gemologists ascertain what a stone is and what its quality is? It's not an opinion or something based on the discernment or, experience of the gemologist, but rather we're trained through many, many classes and labs to use measurable techniques to assess the physical qualities and properties of the gems to identify it correctly. So this entails mastering certain tools such as a microscope, a polariscope, a spectroscope, and a number of other tools that I'll show you at the end of the video that basically allow us to say beyond the shadow of a doubt what a stone is, what it isn't, whether it's been treated, if it's been treated, how it's been treated. So basically learning to perform these tests such as specific gravity, which measures the density of the stone, can allow us to basically say these two stones look identical to the naked eye, but through this series of tests we can say this one is this and this one is that, even though they look the same to the naked eye. So I personally got my degree from GIA. You'll often hear about it. That's the Gemological Institute of America. It is the largest and by far the most prestigious place in the United States to study gemstones. They have campuses in Carlsbad, California, Manhattan, etc. And oftentimes you will hear the term GIA or GIA gemologist when people in the field are discussing. Sometimes with nice pieces of jewelry, it'll come with a certificate of authenticity issued by the laboratories at the Gemological Institute of America, which have been performed by gemologists such as myself. The comprehensive curriculum includes really in-depth classes such as gem identification, diamond essentials, pearl grading, advanced colored stones, diamonds and diamond grading. And each of these classes have a separate lab after the class where once you've learned all of the information, you have to put in practice actually doing these tests and really mastering them and demonstrating that you are good enough to be called a gemologist, basically. For instance, and this is a real example, every gemologist, graduate gemologist has done this, which is kind of mind-blowing to think that I have done this. But in the laboratory, one of the final tests for the diamond grading lab is that you're given 35 faceted colorless gemstones. They all look exactly identical, more or less identical, and you have to, with 100% accuracy in order to pass, anything less than 100 is a failing grade, you have to identify all of the gemstones. So some of them are going to be natural diamonds, some are going to be diamonds that have received some treatment like bleaching or whatever, some are going to be synthetic gemstones like cubic zirconia and moissanite that are grown in a laboratory to imitate the look of diamonds. Others are going to be other natural colorless gemstones like colorless topaz, colorless sapphire, other colorless faceted stones. And you have to perform all these tests and say exactly what each gemstone is and correctly identify it and whether or not it's been treated. So it's really, really, really rigorous. So when I see people referring to themselves as gemologists who didn't go to school for it, it's a little bit like, hey, you don't watch a bunch of Grey's Anatomy and then become a doctor. Well, you don't become a gemologist by watching TikTok videos. That's not how it works. It's a really, really rigorous science-based program. It has nothing to do with like metaphysics or crystal healing or anything like that. It is literally a scientific degree that you get to basically study gemstones. So it's a branch of earth science that just is specifically focused on minerals that are used in the jewelry trade. So that being said, why would you need the services of a gemologist? So gemologists can provide documentation that lets a consumer know whether their stones are genuine or imitation, whether or not they've been treated, any like artificial things like dye, irradiation, fracture filling. These treatments are not always disclosed, unfortunately, and they're also not always permanent. So if you buy a stone, an emerald that's been fracture filled with green colored oil, as you wash your hands over the next 10 years, that oil is going to seep out and the stone is going to lose some of its color. So people want to know if their stones have treatments so that they can properly care for them and know that they will or will not look the same, decades down the road. So there's so many different types of treatments, and each type of gemstone has different types of treatments that it can undergo. And really, the only way to know definitively whether or not a stone has been treated is to either see it come out of the ground and watch the stone from the minute it comes out of the ground to the consumer, or to take it to a gemologist for testing. So why did I choose to become a GG and spend the time, graduate gemologist, we call that a GG, spend the time, energy, and money to complete the program? Well, for a couple reasons. Firstly, I find science really, really interesting. I'm a huge science nerd, and I love learning about this stuff. So when we learn about a gemstone, we learn about its physical properties, but also why and how these attributes came to be. For example, we don't just learn that rubies are red, but rather what processes in the earth make some varieties of corundum, which is the mineralogical family that ruby and sapphire and other gemstones also belong to. Why are rubies red? Well, it's the chromium, trace elements of chromium during the formation that give it its color. We learn about, what kind of host rock rubies can grow in, basalt, white marble. So it's really super, super in-depth, and I find that stuff really, really interesting. In fact, I have specifically a video upcoming in October all about ruby and sapphire and the family of gemstones called corundum, which they belong to. So there's going to be a new Ask a Gemologist Ruby edition dropping at the end of October, so keep an eye out for that. The second reason I got my GIA diploma is that I started in the business really young. I was 19, I'm almost 40 now, so I've been doing this a long time, but back then I found it was really important for me to discern fakes and treatments for the gemstones I bought for my jewelry making. Some unscrupulous dealers would see me coming and how young I was and seemingly inexperienced, and they would try and take me for a ride and sell me a bunch of crap for a lot of money that wasn't what they said it was. And I felt like in order to be a reputable dealer, for my jewelry to definitively be what I said it is, I had to learn how to be a really educated consumer. So that was a big part of why I did it. Thirdly, when my jewelry making business slows down, as often creative careers can, there's peaks and valleys for things, I have these other skills that I can rely on, such as appraisal and repair and buying gemstones for resale. And it's been a journey for me having this degree for so long and being in this field for so long, because there's new treatments all the time. So every couple of years when I go to the huge Tucson Gem and Mineral Show, you'll see a whole new type of treatment on stones that you never saw before. So it's really important to stay abreast of all these new developments in gemstones and jewelry making. So there you have it, a little information about what a gemologist is, how and why one becomes a gemologist, and I hope you enjoyed a little bit of background about what I do, and we'll tune into future videos for my series Ask a Gemologist that's all about the science, the folklore, and the history of certain specific gemstones. Each video has its own specific topic. The last one was peridot. You can check that out on my YouTube channel. I also make free online tutorials for jewelry making, and those are also available on my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching, and check out my finished jewelry that I sell on my Etsy shop, which is moontreeboutique.etsy.com, and I will put the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Okay, and here are just a few of the tools of the trade. A quick look at my microscope, my polariscope, my spectrometer, my Chelsea filter, etc. Just some of the things that I use in order to identify gemstones definitively. And also a look just at the course material for literally one class. Both of these huge books are just the textbook from one of these classes. There's volume 1 and volume 2. Gemological Institute of America, that's where I went to school. These huge tomes cover things like gemstone treatments, gemstone classifications based on crystal structure, different type of phenomenon that cause inclusions. We also have tons of information about the different colors of gemstones within a family, more information about crystal structure, which basically determines the final outcome of the gem, why gemstones can be pleochroic, what causes the color, certain spectrums of light are absorbed into a gemstone, certain spectrums of light are reflected off of a gemstone. This affects basically like what color it appears to us, how certain, cuts can affect how the gems look. This is all about synthetics and imitations. This is a big part of studying to become a gemologist. This is a really in-depth look at all the different ways that gemstones can be grown in the laboratory. These are called boules. This is synthetic corundum, so synthetic emerald, ruby, and sapphire. There's all these different processes where by gemstones can be grown in a laboratory, so that's a whole field of gemology. We ascertain basically through looking under magnification whether or not a stone is natural. So there's just so much information. This is a chapter about different treatments, everything from dyeing, irradiating, like all these various different treatments, how to spot them in gemstones. So it's really an incredibly detailed course. It's super in-depth. As I said, this is just the course material for literally one single class. This isn't even the material from the laboratories, or the labs rather, which is like basically the tests that you need to do in order to complete the class. So I have a humongous gemological reference library, some of my favorite books about gemstones. This is my go-to. This is Walter Schumann's Gemstones of the World. But a lot of these are, regionally specific, New Mexico, Colorado, etc. So I hope you enjoyed this little peek into what it is to be a gemologist, what it takes and what it means. Thank you so much for watching.